The arrival of the stranger. The city of Alaris floated high above the clouds, a shining jewel in the sky. Its towers sparkled like silver and banners fluttered in the wind, carrying the emblem of the ruling elite. Magic and swordcraft were the lifeblood of the city. Every citizen knew that only the strongest, the most skilled warriors, and the cleverest mages survived here. On one bright morning, a new face appeared at the gates of Alaris. His name was Kale Vera. He was a human, a species often looked down upon in the floating city. Humans were seen as fragile, weak, and ordinary. Yet Kale carried himself with quiet confidence. There was no sword strapped to his back, no armor covering his body. He wore only simple clothes, a dark tunic, worn trousers, and soft boots. His hands were bare and his eyes held a sharp, focused gaze. As he entered the Grand Plaza, whispers spread like wildfire. A human? Here? Does he think he can survive? Look at him, so small and unarmed. Even the soldiers and mages who guarded the city shook their heads in disbelief. Among the spectators was Lyra Selendis, a warrior princess renowned throughout Alaris. Her long silver hair glimmered in the sun, and her piercing blue eyes missed nothing. She had trained since childhood in sword and combat magic. She had defeated the strongest warriors of Alaris more times than anyone could count. And yet, as she watched Kale enter the arena, she felt a strange sense of curiosity, and something else, a spark she could not explain. Kale's first step into the training grounds was calm, almost casual. The arena was massive, surrounded by tall columns and spectators seated high above. The air was filled with the smell of stone and iron. Warriors of all ranks had gathered to test themselves, or to mock the new arrival. The first challenger approached, Darren Thaler, a burly fighter whose fists could crush stone. He laughed at Kale. "Do you even know how to fight, human?" he jeered. Kale said nothing. He simply assumed a stance, feet grounded, shoulders relaxed, eyes fixed on Darren. Then the fight began. At first it looked like Kale would be overwhelmed. Darren swung with brutal strength, each strike capable of breaking bones. Yet Kale moved with fluid precision. He dodged, parried, and countered not with weapons, but with unarmed skill that left the crowd gasping. Every punch Kale delivered was calculated, striking Darren's weak points, forcing him back. Within moments, Darren stumbled and fell to the ground, defeated, without Kale ever raising his voice or showing anger. The plaza went silent. Whispers became murmurs. Spectators could not believe what they had seen. A human, barehanded, had just defeated one of the city's strongest fighters. Lyra Selendis felt her pulse quicken. She had seen many warriors in her life, but none like this. There was something in Kale's movements, in the way he controlled his strength, that was both beautiful and terrifying. Her heart raced and her lips barely moved as she whispered, "That warrior belongs to me." But Kale's day was far from over. One by one, more fighters stepped forward. Seasoned warriors, masters of combat magic, even duelists with enchanted gauntlets. Each challenged him, each believed they would show the human his place. And yet Kale faced them all. He did not rely on magic, nor did he use weapons. He relied only on his speed, strength, and instinct. He moved like water, flowing and adapting to every attack. Every kick, every punch, every counter was precise. He absorbed strikes that would have shattered bones in any ordinary human. And still he remained calm, almost serene, as though fighting were an art he had practiced all his life. The crowd's disbelief turned to awe. Even the soldiers of Alaris, who had trained their whole lives to see humans fail, could not look away. Murmurs grew louder. "He is extraordinary. This human, he is not like the others." Lyra, still watching from her balcony, felt a strange pull in her chest. She had always been proud of her strength, confident in her skills. Yet Kale had shown her something different, a raw, unarmed fury that no sword, no magic could match. Her mind raced with thoughts, plans, and curiosity. Who was this human? Where had he come from? And most importantly, why did he make her feel something she could not name? When the arena finally cleared, Kale stood alone and scathed, his chest rising and falling steadily. The defeated warriors looked at him with a mixture of fear, respect, and disbelief. Kale did not boast, did not smile. He simply lowered his stance and nodded once to the crowd, acknowledging them without arrogance. Lyra descended from the balcony, her silver cloak catching the light. She approached him not as a princess or warrior, but as someone drawn to power and spirit in its purest form. Kale looked at her, eyes calm, measuring. "I am Lyra Selendis," she said. "You are remarkable." Kale nodded slightly. "I am Kale Vera. I fight only to test myself, and to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Lyra's eyes narrowed, intrigued. There was honesty in his words, something rare in Alaris. Most warriors boasted of power, sought fame, or wielded magic for status. Cale sought none of it. His strength was natural, honed through discipline and heart. That day, in the floating city of Alaris, a bond was silently formed. Lyra knew one thing for certain. This human, Cale Vera, was unlike anyone she had ever met. And as she watched him leave the arena, she whispered again, more determined than before, "That warrior belongs to me." The sun set over Alaris, casting long shadows across the towers. Cale walked through the city gates, unaware of the ripple he had created. A human, unarmed, had shaken the very foundation of the elite. And Lyra Selendis, warrior princess of Alaris, had found a challenge she could not resist. The arrival of the stranger was just the beginning. The city had never seen anything like Cale, and neither had Lyra. The story of unarmed fury, courage, and the human spirit was about to unfold. The challenge. The sun rose over Alaris, painting the floating city in shades of gold and crimson. The previous day's events still buzzed in the minds of its citizens. A human, barehanded and untrained in magic, had defeated some of the city's finest warriors. Whispers followed him wherever he went. Some were fearful, some skeptical, but most were curious. And the one who was most intrigued was Lyra Selendis. Lyra's mind had not stopped turning since she had first witnessed Cale Vera in the arena. She had faced hundreds of fighters in her life, some wielding enchanted swords, others casting spells that could level entire buildings. Yet, nothing had stirred her heart like Cale's raw, unarmed fury. She decided that if she wanted to truly understand him, she would have to challenge him herself. Not with a blade, not with magic, but in a pure test of skill, hand-to-hand combat. Lyra approached Cale in the palace courtyard. The marble floor gleamed in the morning light, and a small crowd had already gathered, sensing that something remarkable was about to unfold. "Cale Vera," Lyra called, her voice firm but calm. "I have watched you fight. You are extraordinary. But the question remains, can your unarmed skill face someone trained in every form of combat Alaris has to offer?" Cale's calm gray eyes met hers. He nodded slightly, a hint of a smile on his lips. "I do not seek fame or recognition," he said quietly. "I fight to test myself. If you wish to challenge me, I accept." A ripple of excitement passed through the crowd. A duel between Lyra Selendis, the warrior princess of Alaris, and Cale Vera, the human who had defied expectations. No one wanted to miss this. The two stepped into the center of the courtyard. Lyra's silver hair gleamed in the sunlight. Cale's stance was simple but confident. No armor. No weapons. Just two warriors facing each other. Lyra struck first. Her movements were swift, a combination of martial skill and agility. She tested Cale with precise kicks and punches, each one aimed to probe his defenses. But Cale moved like flowing water. He dodged, blocked, and countered with effortless precision. Every strike that would have knocked down an ordinary opponent barely grazed him. The crowd gasped. Every move Cale made seemed natural, almost instinctive. He did not rely on speed alone, nor brute strength. He read Lyra's intentions, anticipating her attacks before they landed. And when he struck, it was with the precision of a master craftsman, hitting weak points that even seasoned warriors would miss. Lyra's eyes widened. She had trained for decades, yet Cale adapted to every move she made. It was as if he could see the openings in her attacks before she even thought to create them. Minutes passed and the duel continued, both fighters moving like dancers in a deadly ballet. The sound of their footwork echoed against the marble walls, accompanied by the gasps and murmurs of the crowd. Finally, Lyra attempted a powerful spinning kick, one she had perfected over years of training. Cale caught her leg mid-air, guiding her balance gently so she did not fall. She landed on her feet, startled by his control. Cale spoke softly, almost as a whisper. "Strength is not just in the body but in the mind and heart as well. Remember that, Lyra Selendis." Lyra's breath caught. His words were calm, yet they carried weight. There was humility in his strength, a kind of respect that was rare among warriors. Most sought to dominate, to crush their opponents. Cale fought differently. He tested, he learned, he protected. The duel continued, but Lyra's approach changed. She stopped attacking with the intention to overpower him. Instead, she tested, she probed, she danced with him. And in that dance, something shifted. She began to feel a deep admiration, not only for his skill but for his spirit. Here was a human, underestimated by an entire city, who had faced impossible odds and risen above them. Here was someone whose courage and determination could not be measured by sword or magic alone. At last, after a final exchange, Lyra found herself on her knees. Not because Kale had struck her down violently, but because she could not deny what she saw. She had met a warrior unlike any she had ever known. His unarmed fury, tempered by discipline and heart, had left her awed. Kale extended a hand to help her rise. She took it, feeling a connection she could not explain. For the first time in her life she felt something beyond respect or rivalry, something like destiny. Lyra began, but the words caught in her throat. Instead, she whispered softly, almost to herself, "I will not let him go." Kale looked at her curiously, sensing the unspoken vow. But he did not speak. There was no need. Actions spoke louder than words, and in that courtyard, both understood that their paths were now intertwined. The crowd erupted into cheers and applause. Some were shocked that Lyra had been humbled, others thrilled at the display of skill. But few understood what had truly happened. This was not a duel to decide victory or defeat. It was a meeting of spirits, a test of human heart and unarmed strength. After the crowd dispersed, Lyra and Kale walked together through the quiet streets of Alaris. The city seemed different now, almost alive with possibilities. Lyra spoke first, her voice soft but confident. "You fight like no one I have ever seen, Kale. But tell me, why do you not use weapons? Why not take the advantage of magic?" Kale looked ahead, thoughtful. "Weapons can break, magic can fail. But the human spirit, it cannot be taken away. My strength comes from within, from discipline and heart. That is why I fight barehanded. That is why I survive." Lyra nodded slowly, understanding more than she had expected. There was truth in his words, a kind of wisdom born from experience, struggle, and determination. As the sun dipped behind the floating towers, Lyra realized one undeniable fact. Kale Vera was no ordinary human. And she, Lyra Selendis, warrior princess of Alaris, had found a challenge she could not resist, and perhaps, a companion she could not let go. The city of Alaris had witnessed the impossible. A human, unarmed, had proven that courage, skill, and heart could overcome any obstacle. And for Lyra, the duel was only the beginning. The challenge was not over, it had just begun. Somewhere deep in her heart, she whispered once more, the words carrying a promise that could not be broken. "That warrior belongs to me." Secrets of the human. The morning sun cast a soft glow over Alaris, but the city felt different to Lyra Selendis. The streets, the towers, even the wind seemed alive with whispers of Kale Vera's unarmed fury. The day after the duel, the city was abuzz. Citizens, soldiers, and mages alike spoke in hushed tones about the human who had challenged the warrior princess and survived. Many called it a miracle. Others suspected some hidden magic. But Lyra knew it was something far rarer: skill, courage, and heart. Lyra could not stop thinking about Kale. His calm gray eyes, the way he moved like water, the silent confidence that made him appear untouchable, it all haunted her mind. She had faced warriors, generals, and mages, yet no one had ever made her feel this way. She needed to know him, to understand him. And perhaps, in some quiet corner of her heart, she wanted to be near him. That afternoon, Lyra found Kale in one of the city's quieter districts. He was training with a small group of children, teaching them how to defend themselves without weapons. His movements were precise, each demonstration clear and controlled. The children followed him eagerly, their faces full of awe and excitement. Lyra watched from the shadows, unseen at first. There was something in the way Kale interacted with the children that surprised her. He was patient, kind, and encouraging. Even as he moved with the strength that had stunned the arena, there was no arrogance, no desire to dominate. He fought to protect, to teach, to inspire. One child stumbled during a drill, falling to the ground. Kale knelt beside them, helping them up. "Do not be afraid of failing," he said softly. "Every mistake is a step toward becoming stronger. Courage is more important than skill, for without it, skill is nothing." Lyra's heart tightened. She had always believed that strength came from power, from skill, from training. But here was Kale, showing her another truth, that heart, spirit, and humility were as strong as any blade. Unable to stay hidden, Lyra stepped forward. "You teach them well," she said, her voice calm but carrying authority. Kale looked up, slightly startled but not uneasy. "Lyra Selendis," he greeted. "I did not expect to see you here. I wanted to understand you," she said honestly. "Your skill, your strength, it is unlike anything I have seen. But more than that, your heart. You fight differently than anyone in this city." "Why?" Kale paused, his gray eyes thoughtful. "I come from a place far from here," he began. A land where humans are not respected, where we are considered weak. I learned early that strength alone is not enough. You must train the mind, the body, and the spirit together. That is how a human survives against impossible odds. Lyra listened intently, her curiosity growing. She had always prided herself on her intelligence and skill, but Kale's words resonated deeply. There was a life beyond the city of Alaris, beyond its magic and weapons, where courage and determination shaped destiny more than enchanted swords ever could. Your people, she asked, they taught you these techniques? Kale shook his head. No. I learned through struggle, through observing, through trial and error. Every fall, every defeat, every moment of pain taught me something. Strength without wisdom is useless. Power without compassion is dangerous. That is why I fight the way I do. That is why I can survive. Lyra's respect for him deepened. It was not just his skill that amazed her, it was his wisdom, discipline, and humility. He had faced life without magic, without elite training, and yet he had become stronger than many who had been born into privilege and power. Your technique, Lyra said softly, it's almost like dancing. Kale smiled faintly. Yes. Combat is a dance of balance, timing, and respect. Every movement must have purpose. Every decision matters. As they spoke, Lyra noticed how others watched them from a distance. Some were amazed, some suspicious, but none dared approach. Kale's reputation was growing, and his quiet confidence commanded respect naturally. Later that day, Kale took Lyra to a small garden on the edge of the city, away from the crowds. Flowers swayed gently in the wind, and the sunlight sparkled on a clear fountain. It was peaceful, a stark contrast to the chaos of training grounds and duels. You carry a lot of strength, Lyra said, but also, something more. Something I cannot define. Kale nodded. It is the human spirit, he said simply. It drives us to fight, to survive, to protect. I do not fight for glory or fame. I fight because it is necessary, because it is right. And because one day someone may need me to stand between them and danger. Lyra's gaze softened. She had heard many warriors speak of honor and duty, but none with such quiet conviction. There was no showmanship, no desire for recognition, just truth. The bond between them grew stronger that day, unspoken but undeniable. Lyra realized that her admiration was not fleeting. She wanted to understand Kale fully, to stand beside him and perhaps, to protect him in return. She wanted to be part of his story, and he, without knowing, had become part of hers. As the sun dipped behind the floating towers of Alaris, casting long shadows across the city, Lyra and Kale walked back toward the palace. The streets were quiet now, but the air was charged with possibilities. The city had seen Kale's unarmed fury, and now they were beginning to see the man behind it, a human whose heart and spirit were as strong as his fists. Lyra whispered again, this time more firmly than before, "That warrior belongs to me." Kale turned to her, noticing her gaze, and nodded slightly. There was no need for words. Both understood that their paths were now linked, not by fate alone, but by mutual respect, curiosity, and the silent recognition of something extraordinary. And so, the city of Alaris stood on the edge of change. A human had arrived, and with him came a story that would shake the very foundations of the floating city. Strength, courage, and heart had been revealed, and the legend of Kale Vera and Lyra Selendis was only beginning to unfold. The secrets of the human were slowly being unveiled, and with every moment, Lyra knew that their journey together would test not only their skills but the very spirit of what it meant to be alive. The rising threat. The floating city of Alaris rested in uneasy calm. The echoes of Kale Vera's victories still lingered in the streets, and the citizens whispered his name wherever they went. Even the palace guards, who had once dismissed him as just another human, now regarded him with caution and respect. But peace in Alaris was fragile. Far beyond the city's shimmering walls, in the dark lands of Varkro's keep, a storm was brewing. Lord Varkros, a ruthless warlord known for his mastery of dark magic and his army of enchanted soldiers, had heard of the human who had bested the warriors of Alaris. He scoffed at first, thinking the tales exaggerated. But reports kept coming, a human, unarmed, defeating champions of the floating city. Impossible, Lord Varkros muttered, pacing in his hall. His black armor gleamed in the firelight. A human, unarmed, defeating my enemies? I must see this for myself. He summoned his generals and revealed his plan. Alaris has grown complacent, he said, voice low and commanding. A human may have shaken them, but we will show them the true meaning of power. Prepare the army. The city will fall, and that so-called warrior will kneel before me. Meanwhile, back in Alaris, Lyra Selendis and Kale trained together. The palace courtyard had become their arena of learning. Lyra's goal was no longer just to challenge Kale, it was to understand him, to match his speed, and to strengthen herself in ways no other warrior could. "You move faster than anyone I've ever faced," Lyra said, dodging a swift kick from Kale. "But tell me, have you ever faced an enemy you could not beat?" Kale shook his head. "Not yet. Every fight teaches something new. Every opponent is a challenge. Strength is not just about winning, it is about learning and protecting those who cannot protect themselves." Lyra admired his words. They were simple yet filled with depth. But she knew danger was coming. The city had enemies, and someone as extraordinary as Kale would attract them. Her instincts were correct. That night, scouts brought alarming news. Lord Varkroz's army was moving toward Alaris. They carried dark enchantments, weapons forged with forbidden magic, and warriors trained to strike fear into anyone who opposed them. Lyra immediately gathered the city's defenders. Soldiers, mages, and archers assembled in the courtyard, preparing for the coming storm. Yet, when she spoke of Kale's participation, some guards hesitated. "He is only a human," one officer whispered. "He has no magic, no armor. How can he face them?" Lyra's eyes narrowed. "He has already shown what humans can do. He fights with heart, skill, and courage. Do not doubt him. He stands with us, and with him we can face anything." The following morning, Lord Varkroz's army appeared on the horizon. Thousands of soldiers, clad in black armor and glowing with dark magic, marched toward the city gates. The air shimmered with energy, and the ground seemed to tremble beneath their advance. Kale stepped forward, standing unarmed at the front lines. Lyra joined him, her sword gleaming in the early sun. Together they faced the encroaching army, two figures of calm determination in a sea of fear and chaos. The first wave of soldiers charged. Their enchanted blades glowed, striking with power that could shatter stone. Yet Kale moved with uncanny precision. He dodged, blocked, and countered without raising his voice or showing fear. Each punch and kick incapacitated his opponents, sending them flying without lethal force. The defenders of Alaris watched in awe. Magic could be deadly, but Kale's speed and instinct turned it into mere obstacles. Soldiers who had mocked him now followed his lead, inspired by the human who dared stand against impossible odds. Lyra fought alongside him, her blade weaving through the battlefield like a silver streak. Together they became a perfect combination, Kale's unarmed fury and Lyra's precise strikes. No enemy could predict their movements. Each wave of attack that the army sent was met with skill, courage, and unyielding determination. But Lord Varkroz had not sent his army unprepared. From the back of the battlefield, he unleashed a group of elite warriors, mages enhanced with dark enchantments, their speed and strength unlike anything Kale had faced before. Lyra's eyes widened as she recognized the threat. "Kale, these are not ordinary soldiers," she shouted over the clamor. "Be careful, they are fast, strong, and dangerous." Kale nodded, eyes narrowing. "I'm ready. Let them come." The elite warriors advanced, their movements precise and deadly. Kale moved like a storm. He dodged a magical strike with a roll, countered with a swift punch, and used his opponent's momentum against them. Each enemy who approached was defeated, stunned into submission without harm. The battle raged for hours. Alaris's defenders, once uncertain, were emboldened by Kale's presence. Soldiers who had feared the enemy now fought with newfound courage, inspired by the human who had faced countless warriors and emerged victorious. From a high tower, Lyra watched Kale with awe and determination. She realized that his unarmed skill was not just about power, it was about strategy, heart, and instinct. And she knew that with him by her side, Alaris could survive anything. As the sun set, the first wave of Lord Varkroz's army was repelled. The city had survived, but the threat was far from over. The warlord himself had yet to reveal his true strength. Lyra approached Kale, her face serious but calm. "You have done more than anyone could imagine today. But this is only the beginning. Lord Varkroz will not stop here. We must prepare for what comes next." Kale's gray eyes met hers. "I know. And I will face whatever comes, not for glory but to protect. And I am not alone, I have you by my side." Lyra nodded, feeling a connection that went beyond words. In that moment they were not just warriors, they were partners, allies, and perhaps something more. The city of Alaris had faced its first true test. And while the threat had been pushed back, the shadow of Lord Varkroz loomed large. Kale Vera, the human of unarmed fury, had proven himself. But the greatest challenges were yet to come, and the battle for Alaris, and for the human spirit itself, was only beginning. As night fell, Lyra whispered to herself once more, a vow she had repeated since the first day she had seen Kale fight. That warrior belongs to me. And somewhere in the dark lands of Varkro's keep, the warlord watched, his eyes burning with fury and ambition. He would not forget the human who defied him, and soon, Kale would face a test unlike any he had ever known. The Mirror Duel. The city of Alaris lay in a fragile peace after the battle with Lord Varkro's army. Streets buzzed with citizens celebrating their survival, and the palace guards trained harder than ever, inspired by Kale Vera's unmatched skill. Yet, deep within the shadows of the city, a new threat was stirring, one unlike any they had faced before. From the mountains beyond the eastern gates came a figure whose name struck fear into even the bravest of warriors. Saren Karath, a fighter whose skill rivaled Kale's. Tall, lithe, and precise, Saren was a master of unarmed combat, known across distant lands as a warrior who mirrored the strength of anyone he faced. Legend spoke of his ability to anticipate attacks, counter them, and strike with deadly efficiency. He had been sent by Lord Varkros himself, tasked with eliminating the human who had disrupted his plans. Lyra Selendis first heard of him through the city scouts. A warrior named Saren Karath is approaching, one reported. He is said to be as strong and fast as Kale, perhaps even more dangerous. Lyra's heart raced. She had fought beside Kale before, faced enemies with enchanted weapons and trained soldiers, but this was different. Saren was a mirror, someone who could match Kale blow for blow. The duel would test not only strength but heart, skill, and instinct. Kale, however, remained calm. I will face him, he said quietly. Strength is not about proving yourself to others. It is about protecting those who cannot protect themselves. I will do my duty. The duel was set in the grand arena of Alaris, a place where the city held competitions and training for the elite. The stands were filled with spectators eager to witness the showdown between two extraordinary warriors. Whispers spread through the crowd, the human versus the master. Will Kale survive this? No one can match Saren Karath. When the duel began, both warriors faced each other silently. Kale stood grounded, muscles relaxed but ready. Saren's eyes, cold and focused, never left him. The air seemed to hum with tension, the entire city holding its breath. The first move came from Saren, a quick strike aimed to test Kale's reflexes. Kale dodged with fluid grace, his movements almost too fast to follow. Saren adjusted instantly, mirroring Kale's speed. The crowd gasped. Every punch, kick, and movement was met with equal force, equal precision. For minutes, the duel was a blur of motion. Kale moved like water, adapting, flowing, and countering. Saren mirrored him perfectly, anticipating his strikes and responding with deadly accuracy. It was a battle of equals, a test of instinct and skill that left the audience awestruck. Lyra watched from the balcony, holding her breath. She had never seen Kale tested like this before. She knew his skill, his speed, his heart, but Saren was unlike any opponent he had faced. To defeat him, Kale would need more than strength. He would need strategy, intuition, and unwavering focus. Kale began to analyze Saren's movements, noting patterns, subtle tells in his posture, the way he shifted weight before striking. Then, with a sudden burst of speed, Kale feinted to the left, drawing Saren off balance. He countered with a precise strike to a vulnerable point, yet Saren adapted instantly, twisting and rolling out of harm's way. The crowd gasped again, unable to believe the skill on display. Neither fighter faltered, neither yielded. Every attack was matched, every defense met with a counter. It was as if they were two sides of the same coin, mirrored in strength, speed, and precision. Minutes stretched into what felt like hours, and finally, Kale saw an opening, a brief, almost imperceptible shift in Saren's stance. With a swift, calculated movement, Kale struck, sending Saren to the ground. The arena went silent. For a moment, no one moved, unable to comprehend what had just happened. Saren lay on the ground, breathing heavily, but he did not look defeated. Slowly he rose and bowed his head in respect. You are extraordinary, he said, voice low but steady. I have not faced a warrior like you before. Kale nodded, helping him to his feet. You are also strong, he replied. Strength is not measured by victories alone, it is measured by heart, discipline, and purpose. The duel had ended, but the impact remained. Lyra felt her chest tighten with admiration and something more profound. Kale had faced a mirror of his own strength and emerged with honor, not just skill. She realized that his unarmed fury was more than power, it was the human spirit, unyielding and unstoppable. After the duel, Kale and Lyra walked through the quiet streets of Alaris. The city had witnessed greatness, and yet neither spoke of pride or glory. Their bond had deepened silently, a connection forged in respect, challenge and shared experience. "You fought well," Lyra said softly, her eyes meeting Cale's. "But tell me, do you feel any fear? Facing someone who mirrors you completely?" Cale smiled faintly. "Fear is natural. It keeps you alert. But I do not let it control me. Strength is not the absence of fear, it is acting despite it." Lyra nodded, understanding the truth in his words. She had faced fear countless times, yet Cale's calm courage inspired her in a way nothing else ever had. That night, as the city slept under a blanket of stars, Lyra whispered once more, her voice carrying both admiration and determination, "That warrior belongs to me." And in the darkness beyond Alaris, Lord Varkros watched the news of the duel. His eyes narrowed, burning with fury. "Cale Vera, you have survived far too long. Soon your strength will meet its true test and Alaris will fall." The mirror duel had ended, but the war was far from over. Cale Vera's journey, the human of unarmed fury, was only growing more dangerous, and the next challenge would push him to limits no one in Alaris could yet imagine. The humans passed. The sun rose slowly over Alaris, casting golden light on the floating city and its gleaming towers. For most of the citizens, the day began like any other, with merchants opening their shops and guards patrolling the streets. But for Lyra Selendis, it was a day filled with questions. She had watched Cale Vera face Saren Karath, a warrior who mirrored his every move and emerged victorious. She had seen his unarmed fury, his calm determination, and his unwavering heart. Yet she knew there was more to Cale than the battles he fought. She wanted to know his story, where he came from, why he was so strong, and what had shaped him into the human of extraordinary skill that stood before her. Cale sensed her curiosity as they walked through the quiet palace gardens. Flowers swayed gently in the morning breeze, and the soft hum of the fountain made the place feel peaceful, a stark contrast to the chaos of the battles they had faced. "You want to know my past," Cale said quietly, his gray eyes thoughtful. "It is not a story of glory but of struggle." Lyra nodded. "I need to understand you, Cale. Not just your strength but the man behind it. Every warrior has a past and I want to know yours." Cale took a deep breath, looking toward the horizon where the floating towers met the sky. "I was born far from here on a planet called Dravelin. Humans there were considered weak, inferior, and unworthy. From a young age I was told I could not achieve anything. Others laughed at me, called me small and fragile. I had no magic, no enchanted weapons. Just my body, my mind, and my determination." Lyra listened intently. She had faced challenges in her life, but nothing compared to growing up in a place where people doubted your very existence. "My parents were kind but not warriors," Cale continued. "They taught me values but they could not protect me from the world. So I learned to protect myself. I trained every day from dawn to dusk. I studied every movement, every strategy, every way a human could fight. I failed many times. I was hurt many times. But every failure taught me something new. Every pain, every scar became a lesson." Lyra could see the strength in Cale's eyes, not just the physical skill but the wisdom gained through hardship. This was the source of his unarmed fury, the reason he could face warriors far larger, stronger, and magically gifted than he. "I realized something important," Cale said, his voice calm but firm. "Strength alone is not enough. To survive, I had to combine skill, intelligence, and heart. I had to learn when to fight, when to defend, and when to protect others. That is what makes a warrior truly strong." Lyra's admiration for him deepened. She had trained her whole life, surrounded by swords, magic, and wealth, yet Cale had faced a world far harsher than Alaris and emerged stronger. "My journey eventually brought me here," Cale said, gesturing toward the floating city. "I wanted to see the world, to test my skills, and to protect those who could not protect themselves. I did not seek fame or power. I only sought the chance to become stronger, and in doing so, I found purpose." Lyra remained silent for a moment, processing his words. She had always believed that strength came from power, wealth, or training in the elite. But Cale's story revealed a different truth. Strength came from heart, discipline, and resilience. "You are extraordinary, Cale," Lyra said softly. "Not just because of your skill but because of who you are. You have survived a world that would have broken most people. And yet, you fight not for glory but for others. That is rare and admirable." Cale looked at her, a small smile appearing on his lips. "I fight because it is right, not because it is easy. Every human has the potential to rise above their limits. We are underestimated, often dismissed, but that is our strength. We fight harder, learn faster, and endure longer. That is why we survive. Lyra felt a connection deep in her heart. She had witnessed his unarmed fury, his victories, and his calm determination, but now she understood the roots of his power. Every battle, every movement, every choice he made was shaped by his past. A past of struggle, resilience, and unwavering spirit. Kale continued, his voice softer now, almost reflective. I did not come here to prove humans are strong. I came to protect, to learn, and to grow. But I also know that challenges are never over. Lord Varkros will not forget me, and his warriors will continue to test my limits. That is why I must be ready, and why I fight with all my heart. Lyra reached out and took his hand. You are ready, she said. And you will not face these challenges alone. I will stand beside you, Kale, through every battle and every trial. Together we can face anything. Kale's gaze softened, a rare moment of vulnerability showing in his eyes. Thank you, Lyra. That means more than you know. As the sun set over Alaris, casting long shadows across the floating towers, the bond between Kale and Lyra grew stronger. They were not just allies, they were companions, partners in battle and spirit. Kale's past had shaped him into the human of unarmed fury, but Lyra's trust and respect gave him purpose beyond survival. In the quiet of the evening, Lyra whispered once more, her voice carrying determination and admiration, that warrior belongs to me. And far away in the dark lands of Varkros Keep, Lord Varkros prepared his next move. He had underestimated Kale Vera once, but he would not make the same mistake again. The true test of the human strength, spirit, and unarmed fury was yet to come. The legend of Kale Vera, the human warrior, was only growing, and the story of Lyra Selendis and Kale's bond was far from over. The coming battles would test them in ways they could never have imagined, but together they would face whatever the world dared to throw at them. A bond forged in fury. The city of Alaris glimmered under the golden light of dawn, but the air was heavy with tension. Word had spread that Lord Varkros was regrouping, preparing for an attack far stronger than anything the city had faced before. Soldiers trained tirelessly, archers practiced their aim, and mages honed their spells. But at the heart of the city stood Kale Vera and Lyra Selendis, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. For Kale, every fight was a lesson. Every opponent he faced tested not just his skill but his spirit. He had survived impossible odds, faced warriors who mirrored his every move, and emerged stronger each time. But this, what was coming, would be unlike any challenge he had faced. Lyra stood beside him, her silver hair flowing in the wind. She had trained with Kale, learned from him, and fought beside him. Her heart beat with a mixture of anticipation and pride. They had grown stronger together, and she now understood that their bond was as unshakable as Kale's own unarmed fury. Are you ready? Lyra asked softly, her piercing blue eyes meeting Kale's calm gray gaze. Kale nodded. I am. Whatever comes, we face it together. The city gates shook as Lord Varkros's army approached. Dark clouds swirled above the city, and a chill ran through the streets. The warlord himself appeared at the front of his army, clad in black armor that seemed to absorb the sunlight. His eyes burned with fury as he surveyed the city he intended to conquer. Kale and Lyra stood at the forefront, unarmed and armed, ready to defend Alaris. The first wave of soldiers surged forward, their weapons glinting and magic crackling through the air. Kale moved like a whirlwind, his fists striking with perfect precision. Each blow incapacitated his opponents without lethal force, a testament to his skill and restraint. Lyra moved beside him, her blade a silver streak, cutting through enemies who dared approach. Together they were unstoppable, a perfect balance of raw human strength and disciplined skill. Every soldier who tried to challenge them was met with a force they could not predict, a coordination that left even seasoned warriors stunned. But Lord Varkros had not sent his army unprepared. From the rear of the battlefield, he unleashed a cadre of elite warriors, mages and fighters enhanced with dark enchantments designed to counter Kale's speed and Lyra's precision. Kale's eyes narrowed. He recognized the challenge. These warriors were faster, stronger, and more dangerous than any he had faced before. But he did not hesitate. He moved with the calm precision of a master, dodging, countering, and striking in perfect rhythm. Lyra followed, covering his flank and using her sword to neutralize threats. Together they became a storm of skill and fury. The battle raged for hours, the city itself trembling beneath the clash of forces. Citizens watched from high towers, amazed at the human and the warrior princess who had turned the tide against seemingly unstoppable enemies. Finally Lord Varkros stepped forward, his dark magic flaring around him. He was powerful, but Kale faced him without fear. Every punch, every move, every strategy Kale had learned through years of struggle now came to life. He dodged Varkroz's magical strikes, countered with incredible precision, and struck at weaknesses in the warlord's defense. Lyra joined him, her blade cutting through the darkness, a shining symbol of strength and courage. The two moved as one, not just as fighters but as partners. Every strike they made, every maneuver they executed, showcased the trust, respect, and bond they had forged through battles and trials. Lord Varkroz, enraged, unleashed his full power, but it was not enough. Kale's unarmed fury, honed through years of struggle, and Lyra's unmatched skill and determination, proved stronger. With one final coordinated effort, they struck the warlord down, ending the threat that had hung over Alaris for so long. The city erupted in cheers. Soldiers and citizens alike celebrated the victory, but Kale and Lyra stood silently, catching their breath. Their eyes met, and in that gaze words were unnecessary. They had fought side by side, faced impossible odds, and emerged victorious, not through weapons or magic alone, but through heart, skill, and unbreakable trust. Lyra stepped closer, her hand brushing against Kale's. "You are extraordinary," she said softly. "Not just for what you can do but for who you are. I am proud to stand beside you." Kale smiled, his gray eyes reflecting the morning light. "And I am grateful to have you by my side. Strength means nothing without someone to fight with, someone to trust." As the sun rose higher, casting its warm light over the towers of Alaris, the city seemed reborn. Its citizens had witnessed something extraordinary. A human of unarmed fury had defended them, and together with a warrior princess, they had faced a threat that many believed insurmountable. Lyra looked at Kale, determination and admiration in her eyes. She whispered once more, her voice carrying a promise that could not be broken, "That warrior belongs to me." Kale's hand met hers, their fingers intertwining. "And I will stand with you, Lyra," he replied. "Through every battle, every challenge, and every storm that comes our way." The legend of Kale Vera, the human warrior, and Lyra Selendis, the warrior princess, had been forged. Their bond was unbreakable, built on trust, courage, and the unarmed fury that had shaped Kale's life. Together they had not only defended Alaris but had shown the city, and the world, that true strength came from heart, determination, and the willingness to fight for what was right. And as they stood atop the tallest tower, overlooking the city that had witnessed their victories, they knew that this was only the beginning. New challenges would come, but whatever storms awaited, they would face them together, united in skill, spirit, and an unbreakable bond forged in fury. The sun set over Alaris, casting long golden shadows across the floating towers. For Kale and Lyra, the journey was far from over, but they were ready. The human spirit had triumphed, and the bond forged through fire, battle, and trust would endure through all the trials yet to come. The city of Alaris would remember this day forever, the day a human warrior's unarmed fury, alongside a warrior princess's skill and heart, had changed the course of history.